Today, let's talk about something which is very, very important as far as I'm concerned, which is having difficult conversations. So right now, we are in that part of the year when there are a lot of people, a lot of managers and juniors are going to hold your performance appraisal conversations with your team. And sometimes, if not done well, this period could be very, very stressful for leaders simply because there will always be someone who is expecting a lot more than what we have to offer in terms of rewards and recognition. Um, so, in general, there are times when we need to have difficult conversations with the people that we lead. Today, I'd like to talk about how do you plan and have that conversation in a way that is in the long run beneficial for you, for the person with whom you're having the hard conversation, and for your team as a whole. So, at some point in time, you will sit down and have a conversation which is kind of more difficult, both for you as well as for the person. So, the first and the most crucial part here is to actually have these conversations. It is to start the conversations. A lot of times, what I see many, many managers and leaders do is they fall prey to the fear of having the conversation and keep avoiding it. They keep pushing it, postponing it, postponing it, postponing it until there comes a point where you can no longer postpone. And by that time, it has become a lot more difficult than it was originally when we wanted to have the conversation in the first place. And so, the first thing, which is to kind of ensure that you actually have the conversation and you start the conversation. So that's the first step. And when you start having the conversation, the first thing that we need to do is to set the context. It's absolutely critical. So what do I mean by context? What I mean is it is a combination of the physical, emotional, and the topical context. So where are you having this conversation? In what physical space are you having this conversation? Is it inviting? Is it stressful? Is it private enough to have a difficult conversation? What are you feeling from an emotional point of view? What is the employee feeling or the person that you're having the conversation feeling emotionally? And what is the topic that you're going to talk about? Right? Is it going to be a in-person conversation? Is it going to be an audio call? Is it going to be a video call? Is it going to be on a Teams chat or a Slack? Or is it going to be a text? So ideally speaking, if you're having a difficult conversation, it is always better to have these conversations in person as far as possible. If not in person, at least on a video call. If video call is not possible, at least on an audio call. I would totally, totally avoid having these difficult conversations over any kind of text messaging app, right? So that is super important. Now, you also need to understand and set the context as to why is this call important for the both of us, not just for the employee, but also for us as the leader having this conversation. It will be a great start to express explicitly our emotion about having this conversation, how difficult it is for you. Uh, it is also important that we also explicitly call out that there is going to be a difficult conversation, and all of this by making sure that we are having this conversation so that the two of us can benefit individually as well, and at the same time, the organization can benefit as well. So you are having this conversation with the person and with their best interest at heart, primarily. Of course, it is also important to balance their best interest with the organization's and the team's best interest as well. But first and foremost, we need to ensure that the conversation that we are about to have is primarily about how they can get better or benefit from having had this conversation. So that's the context that we need to set. Now, once we've done that, we need to explain the situation. So which means, what is it exactly that we're going to talk about? Come directly to the point. There's no fun in meandering into the topic. So say that this is going to be a difficult conversation. I'm with you. I want to make sure that while it might be a difficult conversation to have in the moment, it is for the benefit of your, it is for your benefit that we're having this conversation. And then come directly to the point. Explain the current situation in as much detail and as much depth as possible. Explain what is good about it, if there is any good. I'm sure there is always something good that you can always find in any given situation. Explain what is bad about the situation. Explain why is it bad. And be very calm, cool, and try and avoid a burst of emotion when you are explaining the situation. So once you've done that, I think in any relationship for that matter, whether it is personal or professional, there is always uh, a give and take. There is always a two-way conversation. There is always a two-way relationship. So, and if there is an issue in the relationship, it is never one person's fault, or it is never, one person who is accountable for the entire situation. So we take ownership. We take ownership of our part in the situation. We can say that, okay, I should have probably been clearer about certain things, or maybe I should have done a better job at explaining what your role is. Or maybe you start with, maybe I should have done a better job of explaining the team what I'm asking you to do, whatever it is. Whatever part we have played that has led to us being in the current situation, we have to acknowledge that and take accountability for that. Then we talk about what we have already explored to make the situation better, if we have already done something. Right? If not, then let's have the conversation about how do we make this situation better. Also be very clear, both inside for yourself and set that as the intention for the conversation with whoever it is that you're having this conversation with. Be clear. We talk about what is it that we want to achieve as a result of this conversation. Ask if they agree. Ask if they are okay to have the conversation right now. Ask if what you're trying to achieve is also what they're trying to achieve. If there is a misalignment there, it is important to understand that misalignment. Maybe we are in the situation today that we are having this difficult conversation because we have different understandings of what we are trying to achieve. So just making sure that we are aligned and have a common understanding of what we are trying to achieve, that by itself is also a great thing. It is super important to find common ground in terms of the objective that we are going after. And if we really want different things, then we need to have a different conversation first, right? After having done this, ask them about what they think is happening, about what they think is the real situation, and listen. We need to listen, not to respond, but to understand and empathize. We need to be practicing what people call active listening, which means that you listen to understand and empathize, and kind of be able to explain to them again, explain back to them what is it that you are understanding from what they are saying or what they are sharing. So if we agree on what we need to achieve from the conversation and it needs us to work together to do some brainstorming, to do some ideation, then let's be prepared for the same. If they, if their reflection is similar to what your reflection is, great. Sit down, let's put together our minds and brainstorm and figure out a way to come out of the current situation. And if not, then let's, as a leader, it is our responsibility to try and stay as open as possible to all the possibilities that could help us achieve what both of us want. I've talked about this in multiple places, multiple times, that as a leader, it is our responsibility to trust those who are in our charge, which means that we need to trust the fact that they are not there to create problems for us. They are not there intentionally trying to do bad work. They are not there intentionally trying to sabotage your team or to do shoddy work. Everyone comes to work wanting to do good work. Everyone comes to work wanting to be a part of a team, wants to belong to a particular team, and wants to contribute. So keep that in mind. So let's be empathetic and understand where the person is coming from, and find a place, a common ground, and build on it. It is quite possible that we get emotional, both of us. Uh, Sometimes strong emotions. That's probably the reason why we keep avoiding difficult conversations, right? So to avoid feeling these bursts of strong negative emotions. So we need to keep in mind the fact that we need to breathe, deep breathe. So every time you feel a very strong emotion, I think it is a good idea to name the emotion and at the same time breathe. Let the emotion come to you, feel the emotion, name the emotion, and breathe the emotion out. And do the same with the person you're having the conversation with. Allow them to express their emotions, to feel their emotions, and then encourage them to breathe. Having these deep breaths helps us stay in control of our emotions, and they can help us continue to focus on what we want to achieve. If needed, take a break. If you think you're not able to control your emotions, or you think the emotions are getting the better of you, um, um, just call a timeout. Say that you would like to take a break, go for a cup of coffee or just water or whatever, and come back in 15 minutes. Offer the same thing to them as well. Ask them if they would like to continue or if they would like to take a break. Remember, uh, having a difficult conversation with someone requires their explicit permission. If they are not ready to have a conversation, you cannot force the conversation on them. They need to be ready and open to having this conversation for the conversation to have any impact at all. So every time there is a surge of emotion, acknowledge the fact that there is a surge of emotion. If you are the one feeling it, name it, name it. If it is the person in front of you feeling it, ask them to name it. Ask them what are you feeling, and ask them if they would like to take a break, if they would like some water or a cup of coffee, or if they would like to reschedule and have this conversation maybe half an hour later or an hour later once they've been able to collect their thoughts together, getting their emotions in check. So it's important. And we need to understand that at the end of the day, we are, as a species, emotional beings. And as a species, we have evolved to develop mirror neurons, which means that we mirror each other's emotions. It is automatic and is done and happens at a subconscious level. So one of the benefits of taking deep breaths ourselves is that it allows us to remain in control of this exchange. And by being in control of this exchange, and due to the mirror neuron acting at a subconscious level, the chances are that the person whom we are talking to would follow the lead. and mirror our emotions as well, which also, in a way, allows us to stay in control of the conversations. Once we start talking, I think we need to find a way to move towards the intention that we have agreed at the start of the conversation. If that means that we go into a brainstorming mode, so be it. If it means that the person needs to go back, think, and come back with ideas, so be it. If it means that you need to go back and come back with potential ideas and potential solutions, so be it. What I have experienced is that when put under pressure, there are two ways people react. Either they surprise you with their ingenuity and creativity, or they break down, which means that they need time to be able to come to terms with the situation and need some support, both emotional as well as intellectual support, to actually deal with this issue. Either ways, be there, support them. Remember, this difficult conversation that we are having with our employee or with our teammate or with our colleague, with our friend, the core of it is for their benefit. And to benefit the team and the organization as a whole. But their benefit is the most important. They should see that this is for them. We are having this conversation for them so that they can be a better person, so that they can show up better, so that they benefit from the entire exchange. Keep that in mind all the time when we are having this conversation. In conclusion, what is important is for us to understand that we are having a difficult conversation with a person who can feel as much, if not more, than what we do. However, the difficult the conversation is, we need to understand and keep in mind that the challenge is usually the situation and not the person. So we need to be talking about the situation and not the person. What is at fault is the situation that needs to change. We need to separate the person, the personality, and their actions. Once we are able to do that, we need to show, we can then show understanding and empathy to the person while being candid and strong about their actions. So the thing about having a difficult conversation is it's like a muscle, right? And like any other muscle, the more we practice, the better we will get at having these conversations. It doesn't necessarily mean that we go out seeking difficult conversation, while that is also an option. But what we do is ensure that every time we are put in a situation where we need to have those difficult conversations, we do not shy away from them. We actively have these conversations at the first moment when these become necessary. So one of my early mentors had told me that the success of a leader depends not on what they do when everything is going well, but on how they handle things when things go bad. And they will at some point in time in our careers. There is absolutely no doubt about that. It is only a question of when and not a question of whether if it will or not. So the whole exercise then has an immediate side effect or a ripple effect, which is if we do not avoid having difficult conversations, and if we have these difficult conversations in a way which is done based on um, uh, the needs and the benefit of the person with whom we are having this difficult conversation, by ensuring that we are able to separate the person from their action, by ensuring that we We are sitting with them to find a solution to the situation, or not talking to them or at them, trying to put blame. Um, the additional benefit is that they learn from us. Being on the other side of a difficult conversation done well is humbling and a learning experience. And when they become a manager and when they become a leader, they will remember how we had these difficult conversations. And when they remember these conversations, and when they can actually go out and have these difficult conversations in a humane, empathetic, and a mutually beneficial way, um, that sets out a ripple into the world. And that is how you create a world with leaders who are worth following. And that is how you build cultures worth belonging, by taking care of the people who are in your charge, for whose career and for whose work and for whom we as leaders are responsible for. So some of the things that we spoke about today, I think comes from personal experience. Some of it comes from a book titled Crucial Conversations. Um, and yeah, I've also written a blog about this topic some time back, a few years back, in fact. And yeah, so if you are having a difficult, or if you are wanting to have, or afraid of having a difficult conversation now at the time of performance appraisals, it tells one other thing, which is that you've not done your regular one-on-one check-ins, because the annual performance cycle could never come as a surprise either for you or for the person for whom you are doing the performance appraisal for. It should be a given. It should be just a fact that you come together, and it should always be the fact that you agree on both the rating, and maybe you have a discussion on the rewards that come as part of the performance appraisal cycle, and you talk about all of that. And if it's the only difficult conversation that you should probably have during the performance appraisal cycle, could potentially be about the rewards. There should be absolutely no confusion in terms of what you think about the person's performance, or how they showed up, or how they work. That should have been done on a regular basis, on a day-to-day basis. Every time they've done something good, recognize them. Every time that they've not done something good, give them feedback. This is an ongoing conversation. You cannot wait for a half-yearly or an annual appraisal cycle to give feedback. You cannot even wait for your one-on-one conversations in order to give feedback. You give feedback, either positive to reinforce the particular behavior, or negative to curtail a behavior, right as soon as you observe that particular behavior. And as long as you do that through the year, there should be absolutely zero confusion, and there should be absolutely zero difference of opinion when it comes to what you think of the person's performance during your appraisal cycles. So if you have not done that in the past, at least start doing that going forward, starting now. That's all I had to share about having a difficult conversation. I hope you find this useful, helpful. And I hope that you're able to put this in practice. And I hope that we don't have to have these difficult conversations. But if you do, I hope and pray that you have these as soon as the need for these pop up, rather than wait for these to kind of grow into monstrous proportions. So that's all I had to share today. Thank you. Until next week, take care. Bye bye.